everyone. Really nice to see you all out here. Okay, great, thanks. That's useful. As a reminder. All right, I'm Karan, and I manage some of our developer relations work in some of our international regions, which is India, Latin America, Brazil, and some of our other markets over there. Now, there are a couple of things which I want to quickly share about, and one of them is absolutely not what is GitHub. All right, I am pretty sure I don't think there's anyone who is there over here who doesn't know GitHub. Even if you don't, that's totally fine, because I'm not here to talk about GitHub. I'm here to really talk about open source and a lot more. Now, just rewinding back and telling you all that like 20 years ago, all right, and you might be thinking 1980, 1970, no, 2005. Git was still very new to, it was still a new technology and a new open source version control system, right? And that was almost around when GitHub was founded, somewhere around 2008, for making it really easy for people and developers to collaborate, right? And that became a very big thing. That if you look at what it has evolved right now, it's almost 93% of all developers are using it to build and deploy software, right? What started off as a small collaboration tool, like 20 years ago, is now being used by everyone. And honestly speaking, it's not so very often, if you recollect, in the developer ecosystem, that there is a new technology that becomes so as mainstream as version control, right? And I probably dare any of you to say JavaScript framework. We know that today there's going to be a new one and tomorrow there's going to be a new one. But very few such technologies, are so very disruptive. And of course, last year, it's another technology that has begun shaping, a lot of developer experience. I wish I could give you all swags for getting this right, but I know this also you will get it right, which is artificial intelligence, right? Now, the reason why this is almost becoming a lot of mainstream is it's because of its power to influence how developers are using and how developers are building, which is becoming very fundamental compared to and similar to how Git is being used, right? It's almost how it empowers you to build and do a lot more with the power of artificial intelligence. Now, to just give you a quick stats, right? This is back, in last year. If you look at the extent of number of projects on GitHub, 420 million, out of which 284 million public repositories. And if you look at just 2023 alone, there are 65,000 public Gen AI projects, which is almost 3x, a year-on-year growth, and billions and billions of contributions that is coming up. And it really showcases, one, of course, the scale at which collaboration is happening, the scale at which developers are working together to build software, to deliver innovation that is creating such a huge impact. All right. Now you might be wondering, all right, fine. We're kind of continuously developing, delivering, shipping features, squashing bugs, squashing the testers. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But like literally making innovation and making things happen, right? And this is at the scale at which how things are happening. So it's a global community of developers who are coming together. Now, if you were to again look back just even a decade before, you might be thinking that, all right, here we are still in India helping deliver, some services or some more new features for someone else, and a lot of development happening elsewhere in part of the world. That is absolutely changing. If you're still thinking that is what is the world, it's no more, because it's as interconnected as right now, as much as phones or WhatsApp or email, and this is the same case. And if you look at how developer population is across the world, a heat map of the number of developers, you'll of course see that there is US on the top, but very closely second is India. Now, if you would have thought about this sometime like a decade ago, you might have never probably even thought that India would go up to the second place in terms of developer population, beating all of the other countries as well, the European nations or the Southeast Asian nations or some of the other major parts. So the underlining thing over here is that there is a whole lot of innovation happening right here in India amongst all of us developers. So each and every small thing that you might be thinking about or building upon, it's not just a product or a feature that you are delivering for your organization, but a real big impact that you're creating. Now, if you look at this is one of my amazing favorite graphs when I saw this, is that if you just look at the next 3 years, India is projected to overtake US as the biggest, largest developer population in the world in just the next 3 years, all right? This is very, very amazing, and not just in terms of numbers, but it showcases the potential what all of us could do with the power of collaboration and with building with everyone else, all right? Just think about this. Just think about the scenario when, you go talk to someone, you're using a tool or a software, and then you say, ye kisne banaya, kahan pe banaya? Made in India. And you would say that, hey, who is developing all of this? Oh, this is a person I know in Delhi who is doing this. Like, amazing. What about this? This is someone who is sitting in a remote town in South India, who is there and building on top of this. It's not a dream. It's very much a reality, because that is what is happening. My day in and day out job is to talk to a whole lot of developers and maintainers. I'm continuously surprised by how many people who are building software, such amazing stuff on hotspot, in places where they don't even have proper internet connection. They are building such innovation, which is one of the major contributing factors to what this can happen. And similarly, countries like Brazil, where there is a whole lot of innovation also that's happening, which is overtaking so many other countries. Now, all of this is of course being fueled by a whole lot of generative AI as well. Now, if you think about not too long ago, maybe like 5 years ago, the first thing when you think about generative AI is you might be thinking about, a whole lot of researchers coming together, writing all of those math equations, which I still don't understand even now, but I regret not learning it, is no more the case, because right now, all of us, I'm sure, are able to tap into the power of this Gen AI just with the help of APIs and whatnot, right? You don't have to be a researcher or a scientist or a mathematician to understand what's going on with generative AI, but you can start, using a whole lot of it. And, if you just look at the generative AI projects on GitHub, you can see how much it exploded. In 2022, somewhere around between 15,000 to 20,000, and in that 1 year, it grew tremendously to that 60,000 or so, which is there currently. And it just showcases not just that, hey, there is like every organization talking about AI and, AI, but this is all the community. This is what everyone is contributing to, creating and using. It's not, someone telling you AI is good or you need to use AI, but this is what developers are working on and doing. And one of the very, very interesting parts is that open source AI innovation is becoming very, very diverse. And one of the things that we noticed is that some of the top AI projects, if we look at on GitHub, like the top 20 or so, are actually owned by individual developers. Let that sink in, So think about that last open source project you would have used, where, the namespace is some individual name / something else, all right? Or similar of sorts, right? Where it's a project driven by an individual and is being supported by the community. It's the same case with open source and the innovation that's happening in the world today. And if you look at that, I feel very, very proud and happy to see that India is again there on the second top most community and country, contributing and creating some of the most generative AI projects on GitHub, all right? So you can see that it's not just AI being there, but it's converging with open source. It's there for people to use, to kind of adopt, as well as to contribute back to the rest of the world as well. So I've been talking to a lot of open source maintainers and projects in India, and every time they are saying how they used any AI technology and contributed back something within their solution which helped make things better. That's a very good use case of, it's not just something that you use for yourself, but something that is being paid forward as well for everyone else. Now, if you're thinking about the numbers, all right, that developers gain because of productivity increase through AI, it gives back 1.5 trillion US dollars to the global economy. And what this means is that I'm not saying that this is the worth of AI, but this is, kind of the cost savings or a number in what you save through productivity by using AI purely for developers. We're not talking of businesses, we're not talking of end users, we're talking of developers. The time that all of us will save because we saved some time looking up answers, going through documentation, or writing test cases and things like that, right? The amount of productivity, if you were to put a number, it would be close to 1.5 trillion US dollars to the global economy. There's a more detailed research that we have published on this, which gives a lot more info. So you can go to github.blog and look for this blog post, which will give more details about the research and what all this means that all of us have as a part of using AI for developers. And it's not just, again, about the community or the AI or how we are collaborating, but open source is also equally growing along with all of this. So if you remember, one of the things I mentioned about is that it's really about how open source and AI is coming together and converging to really unleash a lot of this productivity and technology gains. And what this means is that in 2023, the number of first-time contributors to open source projects has been the highest ever, running in millions. So you can look at it in, just a decade ago, it was less than 1 million, all right? And it has grown almost 2x in 2023, with millions and millions of developers being first-time contributors to open source project, first time ever, all right? And again, think about how this coming together with the productivity that you get with AI can really help make things a lot more better. And one of the awesome things, and glad that there are again projects like Keploy as well. Some of these projects are continuing to lead in the open source world, where a whole lot of contributors and developers are not just giving back, but are also learning from all of these projects, getting the help of mentorship, getting the help of the maintainers, and meeting peers through some of these commercially backed projects. Be it again some of the bigger ones like your VS Code or Flutter or Next.js or whatever else those could be. And I think the key thing is that some of the open source maintainers are also adopting generative AI to help make things happen. And what this means, again, when we looked at our own data and research, is that if you were to look at all of the open source projects which have at least like one GitHub star, all right, a third of them, 33.333%, a third of them have at least one open source maintainer using tools like GitHub Copilot, all right? And what it means is that your favorite open source projects which you are using is probably being built using generative AI and tools like GitHub Copilot, all right? Which is the power which you are deriving by using some of these projects and tools, and also giving back. So the bottom line, again, what to kind of have as key takeaways from all of these is that developers are really contributing to open source Gen AI projects, all right? It's not just about it's out there, use this or use that, etc. But all of us, all of you all, and everywhere in the world, people are wanting to help make it better for everyone else with open source and with AI as well. And it also means, like how I mentioned, these maintainers are not just encouraging others to contribute, but are also themselves using Gen AI coding tools to really help grow a whole lot of this that's coming up. And lastly is that on the other hand, organizations are also continuing to rely on open source software, critical open source software, be it in the world of right from your infrastructure as code, or all the way to your deployment and testing and everything else, are continuing to rely on open source software for their critical business operations. So I think, I started off with saying, how 2005 was, the era of Git and, GitHub, etc. And 2023, of course, was a whole lot of around Gen AI. Right now, I think it's growing to become a whole lot more where open source, AI, collaboration, and developers are coming together to help drive even much bigger innovation that none of us would have really thought about as well. And that's where GitHub is coming together to help make all of this happen through, again, collaboration and through a whole lot of tooling. Thank you. Yes, please.
What I see is most of the Gen AIs are like a template kind of standardization, not specific and it's not complete. Okay. My question would be like what percentage, first of all, of generic and what percentage of complete product? And another second question is like open source, what is the percentage and what is non-open source compared to AI? Because you mentioned the percentage, right? Some 90%. Do you have awareness?
So I'll answer your first question. The thing is, around like what are just templates to build something versus foundational models or things like that, right? Again, we don't know because it's all so very open. And the reason how we are kind of measuring some of these generative AI projects is through tags and topics added to repositories on GitHub. Not even like you say looking at the code or so, right? So it could be very, very broad. Now, for example, if I'm creating, say, a Next.js project or something, I might add Node.js, Next.js. If I'm using PyTorch, if I'm using OpenAI, and things like that, right? So it's very hard to determine what is these foundational models or template and put a number to it. And very similar to the second aspect as well. What is open source, what is proprietary? The open source part is, of course, what we are able to see because everyone else is also able to see. Proprietary part, we also don't have visibility into. That's when we can get to know when someone else says that, okay, we are building this great product, which is, of course, proprietary, licensed, etc. And that's something which comes out. I think that's where really the power of open source comes into play because a whole lot of products, tools, whatever else that you're shipping when it's open source, it not just helps the community, but helps say the story by yourself, right? Now I can take up 10 examples here of open source projects because you all also can go look it up, see what's happening, right? Versus something else proprietary that no one knows about. So the problem there itself is a bit hard. So even we don't have more insights into that proprietary versus open source versus what's a template versus a foundation model.
And what about other than OpenAI, any other examples in open source?
So there is a lot, So now again, from a foundational model perspective, there are a whole lot of models which are there, be it on some of the foundational, like what's that? That's skipping me. The models which are published. What's it called? No, Hugging Face. Sorry. Places like Hugging Face where people are publishing their models and things like that. So that's one of the places where people are sharing, etc. So and also similarly working with a whole lot of people to kind of figure out how to surface some of these foundational aspects as well. So again, it's really powerful what developers can do with open source and AI. I think we're just getting started there. So I know we are running a bit short of time and want to be respectful to the next speaker as well. But I'll be around for any questions that you might want to chat about. Or I'm reachable on MV Karan on anywhere, LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub or so. That's MV Karan, MV as in Linux move command. Thank you.